Waller Goble. You can find me on Twitter at Waller Goble, and I'm here to talk to you about mass front-end refactors. That's a pretty vague title, which is why y'all are all here. But what we're really going to get into is like, you've used some find and replace, you've used some stuff to like get things tidier in your code base, but like let's take it to the next level. Let's talk about code mods and how we can use those to change our code base significantly without torturing ourselves. First thing first, if you have any accessibility needs, this is a QR link to these slides. Also, if you just want the slides, it'll be here again at the end. If you don't want it for right now, but you might want it later. But if you need to look on your own screen, here you go. I'm gonna wait until I stop seeing phones. Gonna wait. Okay. Who am I? I'm Waller. As I said, I'm a boot camp grad. I used to make bagels for a living, and somehow I tricked my way into a software development career. Yeah, so that's how I got here. Who I am now, I really started my career at Home Depot. Love my hometown hero. I also did a stint at ThoughtWorks, and I actually just ended a stint on the front-end infrastructure team at Eventbrite. Very cool company. I recommend all three of them. And that's where I got some of these skills. One of my main things I did while at Eventbrite was completely rework internationalization. And I mean, Eventbrite's a 15-year-old company. They got huge code bases. You can't just sit there and find and replace, find and replace, find and replace, fix a typo. So you have to work on a bigger scale. Just to show of hands, who here has ever done like I would even treat like a big rename as like kind of a refactor we're talking about. Who here has used find and replace to change like 10,000 files?
Oh, maybe not 10,000.
Who's broken the GitHub diff? That's the real test here. There we go. Those are my heroes. Who here has written what they would call code mod in any way? Yeah. So what we're trying to do here today, I'm trying to make that concept a little less scary for you. I'm not going to sit here and teach you how to write a code mod because there's a wealth of resources about that. I just want to get you kind of familiar with the concept. And this is really like, we got to change 20,000 things. What do we do? So in the art of like kitschy talk titles, I'm trying to go with the theme of how to go about doing a mass refactor. You need the armor. You need the things that ideally would be beforehand. You have solid so you can be successful. You have your weapons, how you attack a mass refactor. And then the third one is supposed to be styles of combat, some techniques that might help you along the way. I chose this picture because I had a friend in college who actually was like a medieval sword fighter reenactor. And what the other guy's doing, holding the sword the wrong way and just like hitting him over the head with it, that's a real thing they did. And he would tell literally anyone that. So now that fact belongs to all of you. So we're getting into armor. These are things that like I think will help you have a successful journey. These were what were crucial for me when I was making my mass refactors. And like if you probably have some of these to some extent, but I want to go into like why they're important. So the first things are the armor. They're what will protect you. First thing is a continuous integration pipeline. Tell me if you use CI. Can I get some hands? Anyone who doesn't, that's very masochistic of you. I would try something. The Circle CI, people here are very nice. I would talk to one of them. You want a reliable pipeline, because otherwise you can't really trust it. It doesn't build the faith. It doesn't let you know that the massive changes you made haven't broken things. It also lets you know a lot of this is like a timing game. You want to, well, you know someone's changing this part of the code base, so you're waiting on that. You're holding that PR. You just found out that this PR is got a rebase conflict, et cetera. So a CI pipeline, crucial. But you need a reliable one, not just any one. Testing suite, you also need a reliable one. I like unit tests. This is, obviously we have some testing experts in the crowd. I would talk to them about your testing needs, but here's how testing suites can help you when refactoring. One, unit tests, especially, I like to have a unit test on every file because like when you're using a Babel code mod or something like that, you can turn your code into absolute gibberish that won't even run. So you need a test to at least say like, okay, this file maybe doesn't work as planned, maybe it won't get the user what they need, but it compiles. End-to-end tests are where you're actually going to learn if you broke something. Hopefully these are robust enough to catch if you've introduced a subtle bug with your new contract, etc. And then TypeScript is actually a third. I take straight out of Kent's book here. Like, TypeScript is really just static testing of your contracts. It is just tests. And it lets you know that, like, as I said, a code mod is just code in, code out. It doesn't have to be right. But TypeScript will let you know, oh, my code mod actually broke my contract in this place, this place, and this place. And lastly, I can promise you that if you went on Eventbrite in the last 6 months, at some points, it did not have translations. That was my fault. But what I did was rolled it back. Timely. You will break something when you're doing refactors of this scale. You really should have a rollback or a roll forward strategy. Yeah. So, any questions on armor? Any questions about these things? Cool. Well, we can get onto our weapons, except not really, because we have one more armor. Much more people here may have gone to Jonathan Creamer here's talk about monorepos. I think the #1 thing that monorepos give you is this ability to make collective changes in a place that's cohesive. And you have the singular place to run things, singular place to see where changes happened. And also, it's just a cohesive environment for your changes. So if I'm going to 15 repos, some of them have this, some of them have that. I don't know where the code structure is. I don't know where the file structure is. Monorepos really remove a whole layer of ambiguity. If you're not using one, it's probably a good reason, but maybe if you're approaching the scale where you can't make changes by yourself, consider investing. So the next thing we're talking about is like, okay, I want to make a massive change. What do I use? And there are a couple options. Sip of water. Can I get a show of hands who has ever used Babel? The rest of you most likely are using Babel. You don't realize it. Babel is the internet. It is what your polyfills. It lets you use all the cool ES 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 features. It's my code mod of choice. It's the syntax is cool. It's very useful. It's very plugin friendly, obviously. And it's what I like. However, it is a little slow. It's especially a little slow. Like, you will shoot yourself in the foot making it very slow. And by you, I mean, that's what I did. So I like Babel. That's what I use. That's what I recommend. But there are other options. The next one being JS Code Shift. Who here has ever used one of the Facebook code mods to get all your class components renamed, all of your deprecated methods to the scary unsafe modifier? If not, I would recommend running some of those. They're helpful. But Facebook made their own code mod framework. And it's also very good. It's also very fast. You can definitely, code mods are very like open source. You grab a little bit from this, you grab a little bit from that. You make your own thing. And I really like looking at these. I've had a lot of inspiration from the JS code mods. And I highly recommend looking at them. They're very cool. I still like Babel just because it's what I grew up with. But this is a perfectly good option. The last one is not an option. Oh, wait. Oh, man, we lost. OK, never mind. This one actually is not an option, but it's not where I thought I was going. This said, this is kind of old-fashioned, but if you just need to rename something, there's nothing wrong with it. This thing will go fast. However, if you need to go to that AST level, if you need to start changing import statements, it's a really good sign that you do not want to use sed. You do not want to use your VS Code find replace. You want to use the right tool for the right job. However, that being said, I have spent a lot of time in my life just forcing sed to do something that it shouldn't be doing, because it can do anything. The last one, this is not really an option, but this is the future. If y'all haven't heard of SWC, it's a new TypeScript compiler, TypeScript transpiler, whatever wording you want to use. It turns TypeScript into not TypeScript, much like you can use Babel to do. And they are considering adding a plugin system for it, and probably will because it'll make them very cool. We got some people in the audience very excited about writing some SWC plugins. However, they're probably going to be in Rust. Does anyone here feel comfortable writing Rust yet? Okay, well, we got one person from the future here. I actually submitted a talk on Rust and then ended up doing this, but Rust is the future. I would look into this, and particularly, this will solve any speed problems you have. These will be fast, no matter how bad you are at writing them. which is good for me. And yeah, the cons are you have to learn Rust. My old manager at Eventbrite, Kyle, said he really likes writing Rust because you just type .unwrap all the time, and it feels like Christmas. So you chose a tool, and now you're thinking, now what? What do I do? The answer is you start writing your script. And this is where you're gonna essentially, I mean, it's hard to give big, sweeping examples of what you need, but in reality, you'll see I have A, I need to turn to B. I have C, I need to turn it to B.A. Right? So you're gonna find a list of examples of what you wanna transform, and you're gonna go over them. I actually don't have an AST code mod prepared because I couldn't think of one that would really show off the nuance, but also be broadly accessible. I kind of just wanted to get you onto the trend. However, I will recommend you go to astexplorer.net. If nothing else, go to this website and play around. You'll learn a lot about how code mods, like how JavaScript is structured. You can learn a lot about, well actually, I guess I haven't even said, does anyone know what an AST is? Understand that concept? An AST is an abstract syntax tree. It is it's the intermediate representation of your code. You have console.log, hello world. That breaks that down into, okay, this is a function call with a parameter. The parameter is a string because it has quotes on it. This will let you really visualize that. And it will also, kind of just point you down the path of how to write your code mod because you'll see, you'll put A in there, it'll show you whatever. We'll probably go play around with that in a minute. But those are the weapons. Does anyone have any questions on choices to make? Options there? Yeah. So then you write your script. And so let's just fast forward. Let's say you've figured out your code mod, you've settled on Babel, you've got your examples, you've unit tested your code mod, very important, because you will break it otherwise. It's not as simple as just run it and be done. You really think it would be, but it's not. At Eventbrite, we had 2 million lines of JavaScript code. Excuse me. If you just ran it once and finished it, well then you've just actually overridden 50 people's PRs. You're gonna put that into the pipeline. It's gonna take hours to run. Excuse me. And you're just be out of it. So we're talking about strategies and what we can do to ameliorate that situation. Like you're trying to get through the talk. Oh, you're trying to get through the, you're trying to get through your code mod. You're trying to actually get through your refactor. And the first approach is just do it. The pros of this are, if it's a small change and you can squeak it through and no one will be mad at you for overriding all their PRs with you've just renamed your function to function v2, you can do that. The cons are it's really susceptible to merge conflicts, and also it's going to take a long time to build. It's just really going to overload your system if you're really trying to make a 10,000 line, 100,000 line change. I don't recommend doing this. I recommend a divide and conquer approach. And what that means is so in a mono repo, let's say you have packages that are separated by parts of your website. Let's say you have a consumer side and a creator side and then a managed side. I want to find a fault line in my code and I want to make individual PRs for sections of the code base. This is much more important because one, if you're doing this, you can say, hey, Kayla, can you actually do the managed side? I'll take the create side, and then someone else can do the admin side. You can scale with your team members, because this is, you would think that automation makes it to where you can just do it all by yourself, but that's rarely true. It takes a village. The problem, obviously, here is you have to get more people familiar with whatever you're doing. You have to get more people familiar with your technology. You have to onboard them to your script. You have to onboard them to what you're doing. And that takes time, but it's worth it. This was one of my big learnings. I tried to take on the world all by myself. And then I realized I needed some help along the way. The last thing is something that my old manager, Kyle, taught me. That's me and him sword fighting. This is my number one tip from this, and this is something he taught me. When you're doing this, you're gonna run your code, and then inevitably you're not gonna catch every edge case in your code mod. You're gonna have some situations where there are things you need to fix. there's one-off TypeScript errors that you really don't feel like adding to the code mod, you don't feel like to protect the edge case, you're going to rebase and do all those changes manually. So in a 100,000 line commit, you're gonna fix a couple thousand lines. And what this is like the tool here is that you commit as soon as you've done the workflow, and obviously put a big automated in your git commit, because otherwise for the rest of the history of that company, someone's gonna say, hey Waller, you changed this line of code, what'd you do? And you're like, wasn't me, man, wasn't me. And then your second commit is fixed it. And what this does is actually, because you're gonna get these merge conflicts, you can rebase in, and then for the first rebase, you get 50,000 diffs where it's like, I don't care, accept their changes, run the code mod again. You don't care, you automated the changes, you're gonna automate and change their new code as well. And then you rebase your fixes, and that's where you actually pay attention to your problems. Does that system make sense to everyone? Yeah, cool. I got bad news. I flew through this. So we're gonna either do some talks or maybe do some ASTs on the fly to fill up some of this time, because I talked way too fast. That's what we're gonna do. Any questions before we get through that? We're just gonna go around AST Explorer now and kind of play around. AST is like a compiler term. So like there are other, the other way to do a code mod, right, is just like find and replace. You can do a code mod which is like find string X replaced with Y. You can do whatever you need to do. ASTs just give you the flexibility of actually seeing your code and seeing the way it's written and doing smart changes as opposed to like situational changes that may or may not be true based on like, well, if it's always at the end of the line, we can do something. So let's do an example of this. So essentially the main fix that I did, this is very live, very unpracticed. This will be a little rough. I'm sorry for everyone watching this later on. So like the main change I made at Eventbrite was zoom up. That's a great idea. Import, let's call it translate from at pkg/old translate. And let's make that a default import as opposed to a destructured import. And then translate hello world, right? And then what I wanted to do actually, let's say, oh yeah, there was like a custom interpolation system. So let's say, this is actually based on like the Python get text. So name, and then we would do name Waller. Boop, boop. Add a semicolon for whoever cares about that sort of thing. Yeah, we know you do. So what we had to do was change that pretty significantly in that we had to change where we were going from, because we were going from an old API to a new API. And then we also had to change how the string worked. So if we import new translate from at package/new translate, you can probably copy and paste some of this. Whoa. So let's just go through and see what we're working with here. So who here has ever used astexplorer.com? Is this like absolute nothing to y'all? Yep. So like, once again, an AST is a abstract representation of your code so that like an actual compiler can turn it from whatever like gobbledygook strings you have into something that a machine understands, because obviously the machine doesn't understand words. So we can look at the first line of this, and we see that there's a program. There's always a program, and in the body, there's an import declaration. It has this type, it has like the columns that it starts and stops at, and then we have specifiers, right? So let's see what the specifiers are. The specifiers are, we have a default specifier, so this is a default import, not a regular import. And then we have the identifier of the name translate. So this is our first thing where we're like, okay, what does that look like? Well, this is our A. This is what we're trying to get from. We know that we wanted to go from a default transport to whatever this looks like. So if we're writing our code mod, we're going to say find all import translation specifiers of translate and turn them into an import specifier statement with an identifier of new translate. Which is like, that's really speaking a different language, but we're getting there. I might try and just do some of this live. Yeah, I know. So luckily I've got a pro sitting right here. He'll be able to scream the right answer at me. So yeah, this is kind of what a Babel code mod looks like. And yeah, this is always the really fun example they have. This is a Babel code mod that takes every word or every identifier and reverses it. So it took my code in and it said every path that is an identifier, take the name of that path, take that thing down, split it and reverse it. So the Missy Elliott approach. And we see import a Talsnart from old translate. And then it also took that name of the identifier, because this isn't an import identifier, it's just an identifier, and does it there as well. So what if we add a little to this? What if we say if path.node.name equals translate? Well, actually, here, before we do this, let's prove why we would want to do this. I'm also going to import React. I don't know why, I always do star from React as, star from React as React. Yeah, I do. You don't know what I mean. Well, look here. Star as React from React. Maybe he was right. We don't want to use tcar, do we? We still want to keep React. So in our code mod, we're going to do something about that. If this equals translate, let's guard it. Bam. So now we see that React is still healthy, but translate's fine. Is that crazy? Are we, what? Are we, is it starting to feel a little like magic? It is. Once you use a code mod, once you actually use one of these, you're like, I can solve every problem I've ever had with this. I don't need to write code anymore. I can just multiply what I've got. So, I mean, obviously we're halfway to the code mod I needed, right? So, if we do that, we can just say, what do we want to do? We wanted to change translate to new translate. Did it work? Whoa, it worked. Yeah. So we just reinvented VS Code find and replace. But that's cool. That's cool because we only did it in one place. And then obviously, I mean, I think to get to import declaration from the other one will be a little harder, but we've got a little bit of time. Y'all want to suffer with me? There we go. One person said yes, no one said no. So in 20 minutes, it's your fault. So this is only visiting identifier. Let's try and visit something else. In our visitor object, we're going to want to visit, we looked over here, we found out that this was called a import default specifier. Well, as you'll see, that the Babel code mods work as just functions that are named based on whatever key you're trying to get to. So I actually think this is going to be an import declaration. So let's go visit all import declarations. It's going to give me a path. And there's a second option here that I've never used. So I don't actually know what it is. We'll name it a very useful name of that. So, say what? I need an extra or? Thank you, my dear friends. Oh, I can? Oh, I do need a comma. You're right. You're right. Oh, and now I've got too many. Cool. Bada bing. Oh. See, we got a pro here. You would think it'd be me, but it's actually Cam. Anyways, so we're just going to do something with our import declarations. We can do the same thing we did before. And see, we can just go here. So we apparently, import declarations have path.specifier. So the specifiers. And we can, there's like a logger in here, isn't it? Can I console log? Let's find out. That's probably way too small. Is it? Anybody? Cool. So we can probably log the specifiers. And find out that it's undefined 3 times, so you probably can't do that. This is where I really wish it had TypeScript and it had autocomplete. But, oh, it's probably path.node. .specifiers, okay, we're getting somewhere. And then a node has a local, and a local has a name. Cool. So if path.node.specifiers.local.name, was I wrong there? Oh yeah. So for let spec of see, I like when I know, it's just, it's brutal. So we have a, let's console.log spec.local.node.name. Okay. Yeah, okay, here we are. We're getting there. So if we have spec, if we want to change our default, if spec dot, I'm writing too much Python. I've been interviewing, you can tell. If spec dot type equals, and we can go, so like this is the power of AST Explorer. I can just go here, okay, this is what I wanted, so I want to know if it's this type. I can't copy and paste though, so that's a personal problem. If we do that, then console.log it. You can see how I write my code, which is 1 line at a time. Cool, so I've got it. And then I think we're going to be able to do, let's just console.log spec, and then I think we can do spec.name. Can we? Spec.local.name equals spec.local.name equals, it works. And see, this is a great example of, obviously this will do nothing. This code won't work at all. But I created it with an AST. There we go. That's what I need. We could go into how to actually transform this over, but I think it'll take more time than we have, if I'm being honest. So let me hear some questions. Can I talk about rollback strategies? I absolutely can. On the front-end infrastructure team, we had a lot of discussion about this. I'm partial to a roll-forward strategy, which is a very unpopular opinion. I also think they're important in relation to baking. So like, hopefully you're A/B testing your website. If you're A/B testing your website, you have A and B out at any given point, right? A can be your last version that's at 0%, and B can be your current version that's at 100%. So let's say you have A and B, you just launch C. So B becomes A, you now have C, and you put this at 90%, this at 10%, right? My opinion is you just change your new release, you've baked it at 10%, turn it to 0, and go back to your old one. However, I don't think you should just go redeploy a new version or an old version. I think you should have to roll forward because like, there are systems, I was actually just talking to a friend about this today. He says that he has every single, like, executable for one of his servers that's ever existed on an S3 bucket. He can deploy any of them at any given point. However, if you're in a microservice, that's not gonna be able to talk to any of the other microservices if it's like 3 versions ago, right? So I believe in a roll forward system, which is go cut the bleeding off by going back to the last possible thing. Hopefully that doesn't have too many issues, and if not, and then if so, and if you've cut off the bleeding, now go fix your issue as fast as possible. So I don't believe in a huge like backlog of changes. That's a great question. It's part of your armor. Any other questions? What's up, Ken?
Can you show us the Babel code on it, like just the tool itself? You don't have to actually do it, but like how do you turn this into something that you can run on your code base?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't have, this is actually my girlfriend's laptop because I'm in between jobs. I don't have a computer right now. But so what you would do is like you can use either the Babel CLI or have a Babel config, and you just put this in a script and you use the Babel CLI to run this on some code.
Do a quick Google for Babel code.
Yeah.
Yep, that person will do it. There you go. Run that, it's all you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost put that, like as I was sitting up here, I was like, I should put some plugin resources. I will link that, I'll put that in the slides later and let everyone be able to look at it. Do we have any other questions about this? Do we feel like kind of inspired to go do this in your code base? Do you feel like you could take a crack at it? I hope so. Whenever I go to a conference, I really don't expect to like learn the whole world of how to do something. I like to be able to experience a new idea, and then when I experience a problem in my life, I can be like, well, I saw this once. Maybe I can do that if some guy could do it on stage. So I really hope this is helpful. I have one question for y'all, which is, bam. If y'all have some time, I would love, this is connecting to a Google form. I actually got this idea from Kent, which is, this is feedback about how I did in this talk, which I feel shaky at the moment, but I'm sure y'all will be nice. But you don't have to be. I like hard feedback. I'd really appreciate if y'all filled this out and let me know. It's the only way I can grow as a speaker, and it's how I can prove to Pratik that I should come back next year, which is. Thanks for doing this, and also I really hope y'all had a great Connect Tech. This is my favorite conference. It's my first conference that I ever spoke at, and I love it here. And it's been great because of all y'all. So thank you so much.